Welcome to Jay's Sports Detroit Lions News Podcast. I'm your host, Joe Chapp. We're going to be talking about the Detroit Lions today in a different prism. Usually we talk about, obviously we're getting a training camp rookies report on Wednesday, which is going to be very, very interesting because it plays along with my story. The Veterans will report later this week. But the Detroit Lions are potentially in a crossfire with what's happening with the second round picks of the NFL draft. Two picks have been signed: the Cleveland Browns, Corey Schlesinger, the linebacker from UCLA, and Jaden Higgins, the Iowa State wide receiver that was drafted by the Houston Texans. And they were drafted for guaranteed money. Okay, so they got a fully guaranteed contract from their collective team. So right now you're dealing with a situation in the NFL that is a little bit different because we haven't seen or saw or heard or whatever the case may be. We haven't heard something like this since Deshaun Watson wanted to guarantee a fully guaranteed contract, and that did not go over well with the owners, and it shouldn't go over well with the owners because when you're talking about a guy like Deshaun Watson, is he more uh, before his all his extracurricular activities? Was he more you know adapted to get a fully guaranteed contract? You could argue it. For a rookie, it's a little bit different. But here's what's happening. So I'm gonna put up the screen. It's from Pro Football Talk. It's about it could be too late for the unsigned second round picks to take a stand. And it goes right here. An agent who doesn't represent any of the 30 unsigned 30 second rounders over this issue. Guaranteed Paid has raised a very good point, good enough to steal. The second round pick should have held out earlier. At a minimum, they should have collectively skipped mandatory minicamp. Instead, all of them signed participation agreements, including Tate Ratledge, and showed up for work despite not being employed throughout the offseason program. So now they're going to stay away. The teams might not take it seriously. They'll count on the players caving so they can get ready for their season. And then they say however it plays out, it'll be much harder to hold the players together once camps open, especially since agents traditionally haven't been willing to take advantage of ability to players to coordinate and collude. The coordinate and collude is something that you are going to hear a lot of, and this is the issue. The issue here is that the Detroit Lions have, I would say, a very it would be well versed to get a guy like Tate Ratledge in the building. And one of the things that was mentioned on X from a guy who is very well connected to the NFL, he said, "You know what? What if they just say we're not going to sign all 30 of them?" Now, I don't think that's going to happen, but the reality of the situation is this is where we're at. Is Tate Ratledge going to sign? We'll see what happens Wednesday. The Detroit Lions are one of the first teams to go to training camp. This this all started because Chargers wide receiver Trey Harris becomes the first of 30 unsigned second round picks to not show up for camp time for all of them via their agents to come to a coordinated strategy and the NFLPA to organize it. So the Detroit Lions could be caught in the crosshairs of a potential feud between the NFLPA and the NFL. And this is not what anybody wants. This is not what any Detroit Lions fan wants because obviously when you're coming off the retirement of Frank Ragnow, you're hoping that you can get Tate Ratledge in the building and get him acclimated. He was in the offseason program, so he did sign that participation agreement. But it's really interesting what's happening. And if you listen to some of the key guys that are insiders and all that jazz, they are talking like this could be a potential thing. And the Detroit Lions are one of the first teams to open training camp because of the Hall of Fame game against the Los Angeles Chargers, which the Los Angeles Chargers rookies reported today. Detroit Lions will report on Wednesday. So it's going to be very interesting to see where the Detroit Lions rookies, all of them are pretty much signed, including Tyleik Williams. But the one is Tate Ratledge. And he is one of the second round picks, one of the 30 second round picks that is unsigned. And under no circumstances do you go, wow, Tate needs to really just sign the contract. Sometimes And if you're in a union, if you're in a collective bargaining situation, sometimes a little thing like this could manifest itself. Whether it's a walkout, whether it's a strike, whatever, that's not going to happen. But could all these guys hold out in terms of getting guaranteed money? I mean, potentially, but we got to see. Obviously, the Detroit Lions will be one of the first teams to really find this out the hard way, if it does happen that way, because Tate Ratledge is supposed to report on Wednesday, and so this is a very interesting situation. And when you talk about, what the fallout of this could be, the fallback of this and fallout, there's two things. Obviously, the owners don't want to say, we are going to give you guaranteed money to sign a contract. Because if you do this for the second round picks, you're going to have to do this for the third round picks. You're going to do it for the fourth round picks. And it sets a bad precedent. Now, the owners have colluded against the players a few times. And it'll be interesting to see if the players can collude against the owners of the NFL. That's the major question. And that's where we're at. And it's impossible to talk about because the dynamics of this are pretty huge, especially for the Detroit Lions. We're talking about dynamics that are huge because you have so many players, so many teams that have unsigned second round picks that would love to get their players into camp, and the Detroit Lions and the LA Chargers are the first two to go out to bat. And so it's going to be very, very interesting what happens from here on out. We're going to see whatever the case may be. We're going to see what happens with this whole second round pick type thing. A lot of people are worried in terms of their second round picks coming to training camp, and it's all across the league. It's not just the Detroit Lions. It's not just Tate Ratledge. It's a league wide thing for 30 NFL teams because two NFL teams, the Browns and the Texans, decided to fully guarantee a contract, which set the precedent for these players to say, I want my contract guaranteed. And all the players that want to get their contract fully guaranteed, you're obligated to get the most money you possibly can. But the reality of the situation is we've seen this happen before with Deshaun Watson. He got a really fully guaranteed contract, and that did not work out for the Browns at all. And that was the last time that was done in terms of quarterbacks. But quarterbacks did end up getting more money in terms of guarantee, but they didn't get the fully guaranteed like Deshaun Watson did. So it's going to be interesting because like I said, the precedent could be set. If you're a second round pick and you get it, what do the third round picks do next year? The fourth round picks. Do all the draft picks get fully guaranteed money? Where does the buck stop? We know the first round picks they get a slotted guaranteed money kind of thing. We don't know what happens. We obviously know that there's a slot for the second round guys, but we have never there was never been a connection with a guy getting fully guaranteed contract in the second round up until the Cleveland Browns and the Houston Texans made those deals. So the Lions could be caught in the crosshairs of a political NFLPA NFL battle. And obviously what came out today about the NFL colluding with certain things, this could get really dicey. And it might be at the best of the NFLPA, which is just wild. And one of the first teams to bat will be the Detroit Lions. And it's going to be interesting because coming into this training camp, which the Detroit Lions will start, the rookies will report on Wednesday. I said one of the biggest issues is the interior offensive line of the Detroit Lions. So if Tate Ratledge can't come into practice because he's holding out for whatever reason, collectively bargain, standing up for his peers, whatever the case may be. I mean, he's legally obligated to do that, but at the same time, like this is not something that is just at a Lions level. There's 30 NFL teams that have second round picks that are unsigned at the moment. And that's the most interesting thing about this because this is an era we've never seen from any of the NFL. We've never seen this from second round picks. Never. I mean, I'm sure back in the day there was guaranteed money, but that had to be before it was everything was slotted and everything was put in conjunction. But we'll see what happens from here on out. But the Detroit Lions could be caught in the crossfire of an NFLPA NFL battle, and stemming off what happened with the collusion that happened earlier this year. Um, it'll be interesting if the NFLPA tries to strike back with some of their young rookies and take a stand, and that could leave the Detroit Lions, Tate Ratledge, off the field. So we'll see what happens. Wednesday is going to be an interesting day to see if Tate Ratledge reports to camp and signs for the Detroit Lions. But at this moment, he is unsigned from the Detroit Lions. There are 30 NFL teams that have unsigned second round picks, and there are only 2 teams that have signed second round picks, and they're fully guaranteed deals. So this is going to be interesting. This might drag out. We don't know. It's a very touchy, dynamic situation with this. What's going on with the NFL and the NFLPA and these second round picks. So we'll see you on the next video of Detroit Lions News Podcast. We will have a podcast on Wednesday as we talk more Detroit Lions football on Detroit Lions News Podcast. So we will see you in the next video as we talk more Detroit Lions football here on the Detroit Lions News Podcast and the JC Sports YouTube page.